What up? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And look at you. You done stumbled upon little OTB Saints, where we bring you all the latest black and gold coverage.
Who are the Saints going to draft? Who's going to be their quarterback? What does the salary cap look like? All that information and more.
Hope you enjoy it. Like, subscribe. We mentioned it this morning, right? Sports Center Top 10 comes on, and I've got a men's beer league softball highlight. I've got a Division II diving catch. And then the number one play of the day was a Texas State routine diving catch in the outfield. Like, that's the part of the calendar that we are in right now. So when it comes to, being a site in New Orleans on football that covers the Saints, does the best job, does an incredible job, what are y'all chewing on right now? What is most interesting to you about the New Orleans Saints?
So, I mean, the place where I'm at with it is this is usually just the time of the year where I go through, and I've learned how they set their prototypes by just studying them and talking to people. So we recreate that process and just kind of start whittling down the list of names that actually fit their prototypes. And, it's a combination of size, speed, hand size, arm length, all this stuff. And when you see it now, we're going Jeff Ireland back to 2015. There's enough evidence there to know pretty much exactly how they do it. So that's kind of where we're at. And
okay.
It's kind of takes a little bit of the shooting in the dark out of it. But I'm fascinated by it. And some of the stuff that I'm going to be really curious to see this year is if anything kind of changes at least a little bit. I know position coaches have a say in what some of these people look like. And I don't think we're going to see anything drastically different, say, on the defensive line. But maybe there's a little bit more open-mindedness towards somebody like Nolan Smith, 238 pounds. Typically, that player wouldn't even be considered to play here unless he could drop back and play in coverage like Haile Kakaha or Zach Bond or Caden Ellis being these undersized people. But look, if they draft someone, they want them to have a role on first and third down. So, I mean, that would kind of be where it would go because you aren't going to blow up your whole system to be a 3-4 defense for Nolan Smith. Maybe Micah Parsons would be someone that you change your whole system for, but that would be, I'm just curious to see if there's going to be any change or any lean towards doing some things that look a little bit different because some of the, the voices in the room have changed a little bit.
So I know a lot of what you're referencing. I've heard and read on New Orleans on football about relative athletic score before. Now, interestingly, RAS has maybe become, a lot of people don't view it in the best light, right? Because that was like what it was used to justify like Peyton Turner and Marcus Davenport and some of these other teams. Go ahead. I mean, add context because this is my interpretation of events.
Yeah, they don't use RAS. Like that's not something they use. Like a few years ago,
interesting.
When I was doing this,
I attributing that to New Orleans on football. Then I apologize.
No.
I remember reading about that in the past.
No. I write about it all the time. Like it was something that I figured out a few years ago, just kind of going through this, and it was like, wow, this thing kind of perfectly captures what they draft, and there are thresholds because it just takes everything. RAS, all it does is it takes all the stuff that teams would prototype: speed, 3-cone time, agility stuff, explosion, height, weight, arm length, hand size, all of it, and it just takes all of it and it distills it down into a single number. So if you are a team that likes big, fast, athletic players, which is literally every NFL team, you're going to have your players are going to score well on this thing. But what I did, like I looked at it and I started studying RAS and I figured out, okay, like in these rounds, there is a historical trend to where the player has a number of this or above, and it's a scale of 1 to 10. So first round, going back to Jeff Ireland's first year, the only player, well, there's two now, the two players they drafted in the first round that were under a 9 were Sheldon Rankins, and he was short. So we know exactly why he wasn't above 9. And then last year, Chris Olave was at 8.64, and it was because he was lighter. So you have two guys, you can clearly see why every other single one above 9 during that span. So you can just look at this and figure out, okay, the guys they're going to take in the first round are probably going to be a 9 or above. And then you do the prototyping on top of it and you kind of lower that net even smaller. And it's like, okay, these are the guys that fit. So no, it isn't something that they actually use in the building. It's just scouting. You aren't going to draft small, slow players. So that's just kind of all RAS is it's just a number system of, okay, how athletic are these people and do they fit the size of what plays in the league right now?
Well, someone that I've seen with a very high RAS that I don't really know if the production is going to be there, but physical freak, 6'7", 264 pounds. That's Darnell Washington. out
Yeah.
of Georgia. Nick, I've seen a lot of places, first round to the Saints, second round to the Saints. A lot of different sites have him going to the Saints. And look, sometimes that just doesn't work out. I tell people all the time, I thought I was going to Detroit. Thank God I didn't. I went to San Diego. But it makes sense. I mean, right? You bring Foster Moreau in, and fortunately, and then unfortunately for Foster, obviously they catch something very, very serious with him. But it seems like they want to add a tight end, and Darnell Washington is a very intriguing player. Although the production numbers might not be there, I mean, you are talking about a physical freak.
Yeah, the profile's crazy. I mean, he's a giant, and if you want a big physical player that can make catches, I mean, he fits the profile. And if you want to get in the red zone and just throw the ball up and have somebody that can literally just jump over everybody, I mean, he'd be the guy right there. I like the idea of him a lot. I like the idea of a tight end in general a lot. I think that they need that element, and he's definitely somebody that's incredibly intriguing. Mayer from Notre Dame, I kind of like him too. He doesn't necessarily blow you away with some of the athletic traits, but neither did Rob Gronkowski, and he's kind of probably going to be more of a inline type player that can give you some of that catchability. So I think maybe you're willing to sacrifice a little bit of the athleticism for some blocking ability. So he's somebody that I think maybe could be there at the end of the first round or 40, both these guys. But if either of them are there, I'm incredibly intrigued by the idea of just getting better at that position. And if you can do some two tight end stuff, even with Juwan Johnson and say like a Mayer, I mean, I think that just kind of opens things up a little bit in some of those tighter areas of the field. And look, they got to get more physical. Like they got to get more physical on offense. They need to be able to bully people a little bit. And I think that either one of these guys, but man, you give me 6-7 in the red zone, and I think Derek Carr could do a lot of damage with that.
How about this, Nick? So, taking all the information, everything that you know, I mean, again, I feel like just now you referenced tight end, maybe going with that second round pick. When it comes to everything you know about how these Saints draft, are we still at like a Brees or what Clemson? Like, where are we at in that first round pick? Where do you expect the Saints to kind of aim?
I mean, probably to aim. I mean, I'm guessing they're probably aiming up already, as in like moving up the board to do something. I mean, that's just kind of their method of operation. I think all things being equal, you're getting a defensive lineman. I think all things being equal, like that's the preferred outcome. They have to get more pass rush, and like Van Ness or the Clemson pass rusher. There's a possibility maybe one of those guys is there. It's 17, and then if you take 29 and 71, the Saints' third round pick, you package them together, I think it gives you 1,125 trade points on the trade value chart, and then 17 and 18 is like 1150. So you could theoretically get there without having to give up a future pick. The idea of giving up future picks, to me, that's something I don't want to see unless you're going like way up to get, I don't know, Will Anderson, but like that's not going to happen. You're not going to get in the top 5.
Yeah.
So I don't want to see that. And the reason I say that is I just don't know for sure what this team's going to be. If you told me in 18, like when they made the Davenport trade, I didn't hate it because it's like, all right, they're going to be picking 25 at worst. So, okay, you aren't giving up too much. I think the variance on this year's team, and I lean towards them being probably above that 9-win metric, but it's possible that they're below 9 wins, and then you have a high pick. So giving up a future first to me is something that I just absolutely wouldn't do. But if you can get to 17 and get your pass rusher, you're giving up your third round pick, and then maybe some of your stuff's answered a little bit. Okay. But, overall, I like the volume approach. I think there's just so many thin spots, and you just go down the depth chart, and there's just not a lot of depth at a lot of these positions, and kind of having a little bit of volume, I think in the first 3-4 rounds is something that could really benefit a team that needs, I think, players at a lot of spots.
Nick, what do you think the kind of the depth of edge rusher is in this draft? Obviously, we're talking, a bunch of different type of bodies. I mean, you mentioned Nolan Smith and Miles Murphy from Clemson, going to be different kind of body types. B.J. Ojulari is a guy that I've seen the Saints maybe have some interest in as well. So, like, how do you think that depth of that class, as far as, guys that can get after the quarterback, where is it at this year?
I think they got to get at it early because I think this team needs a difference maker. And I'm just not, I'm not sold 100% on Carl Granderson being this guy that takes a huge leap next season. Maybe he does. Maybe that's underestimating him. And I also worry, I don't know that we see it yet, but at some point going to wake up and Cam Jordan's going to look his age. And sometime, some year that's going to happen. I want them to get somebody early. And that's just a spot where you have to go early to get a difference maker. And even at the end of that first round, I mean, I think when you're drafting a guy there, you're drafting a maybe. You aren't drafting somebody that's necessarily for sure going to come in and make a difference. Guys that can make a difference just get overdrafted. There's no position in the league. It's quarterback, pass rusher, wide receiver. They all get overdrafted, and it's almost virtually impossible to find them in free agency. The Saints just got lucky with the quarterback, but you aren't signing guys that in free agency that end up being in the top 10 percentile in any of those positions. So you got to be aggressive to get one. And that's why they went after Davenport the way they did. And I think it was the right idea, wrong player. And maybe you try it again. I don't know that you get snake bitten and fearful because it didn't work out the first time, or, you got Peyton Turner at the end of the first round and that didn't work. I think you have to keep going back to the well, because that's really the only way to find an answer there. And if they do somehow manage to become a good team and Derek Carr is what they think he's going to be, you are drafted in the 20s every single year then. And it becomes even harder to find that answer at pass rusher. So I think they got to go after it. And I think they need to pray that Peyton Turner stays healthy, stays on the field, and becomes something, because that position, I mean, it is the one spot that just absolutely terrifies me. I could see a scenario very easily where everything goes wrong at that position.
God, it makes me, you talk about how those guys just don't come available. And then you think about, you had Trey Hendrickson. It's a couple of years ago, and it starts to hurt all the worse. Nick,
I was so wrong about him. I can't lie. I was so wrong about him.
Look, man, it happens, dude. It happens. Hey, you know what? Talent evaluation, incredibly tough, right? Like, it's why the guys who get it right, like 50 or 60% of the time, go on to be the greats, because you just never know how guys are going to work out. Nick, I think we talked about this last week, but my brain's just bleeding and everything's melding into one giant conversation in my mind. Do you think the Saints are going to get Hard Knocks? I mean, if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Jets, like, absolutely HBO is going to want Jets, right? But I was talking about it yesterday. This is not a Saints team like we were saying. The variance is what it is. I don't expect this team to be great. I have no worry about Hard Knocks, like upsetting the apple cart or anything. I want to see the New Orleans Saints on Hard Knocks as a Saints. Like, I want to see inside that building. Jake laid it out yesterday. You got Jamal Williams, massive personality. You got the Derek Carr story angle. This weird island of misfit toys that are all rejoining once again together, even though they all sucked last time they were together. Like, there's stuff to chew on there, especially, I don't know, Bears, maybe a little bit with Fields. Commanders, get them the hell out of here. I would invite a Saints Hard Knocks.
I'm going to be a hater and selfish in my opinion, but like, I don't want to go home and watch work. One, two, like, it would drive me nuts knowing that there are people in there that might know more than me. So like, it would just have me on edge constantly. Like, what does somebody know? Like, but look, I think at the end of it, it would probably be fascinating. You'd see things about them. You'd learn you'd see a whole new side of how things happen. So it would be educational. And once it got going, I'd be fine with it. Out of the teams that are available though, like, I kind of feel like, if I was the league, I would probably want to push it. Chicago's eligible, right?
Yeah,
like, I would push it towards.
You got Fields.
I would probably push it towards Chicago. I mean, like, make Justin Fields a star of the league. I think he's someone that could be, potentially a face of the next generation. I think there would be benefits to that. But I mean, look, I wouldn't welcome it, but I think once it got going, it would be cool to see the Saints. And it's just there's stuff that we'll never see. So if you can take us inside there to see it, and we kind of get a little bit of a better understanding of how things work, I think I would ultimately end up being okay with it.
Cam Jordan, right? Made for TV.
Tyron would be great.
Ooh, yeah.
The Michael Thomas stuff would be great.
Oh, sure. Okay, dude. Nick Underhill at Nick_Underhill. New Orleans on Football is the site. I'm a very pleased and happy subscriber for years now. You should join up as well. Nick, thank you so much, man. You have a great day. Wow, just amazing black and gold takes right there, Jake.
I don't think I've ever heard any takes that are better than the two guys that just gave you that take.
And you can keep getting them by going ahead and liking, subscribing, ringing the bell to get notifications when we post. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next OTB Saints.